Welcome to Public Comment. I'm John Dunbar, former mayor of Yountville.
And I'm Alfredo Pedroza, farmer.
Thank you for joining us as we launch season 2. We're going to talk more about politics, people, and whatever else is on our minds.
Again, don't provoke me.
I want to provoke you about
But
that.
they're doubling down. That means they believe in this community.
It's always the challenge. How does government keep up with innovation?
Hey, where are the solutions going to come from? Like, you're depriving us of seeing you with a mustache.
Alfredo, welcome to season 2. It's pretty exciting. We had 21 episodes in our first season, and we're back.
They were all special, John. All of
Equally.
them. Of course. Just like my 3 kids.
All our favorites. But what do you think we're going to be touching on this season?
Look, I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot to talk about. And I'm excited about it, man. I think there were some people, we're not famous yet, but I know it was very interesting, for you to get stopped at your favorite market and people tell you they're listening to the podcast. I normally don't really enjoy talking to people that much anymore, but I think it's cool that people are listening, to your point. And it goes back to kind of how we ended, I think, the last episode of what's different is I think there's a huge need for people wanting to be informed, but wanting information in a way that they can digest it in a way they want to listen without a bent of a newspaper. Again, I don't want to start this season, bashing papers again, but without putting the thumb on the scale, right? And I think what we accomplished in season 1 was very authentic of here's a perspective. You consider it how you want it, but the fact that they're taking time to listen was good.
Yeah, and I think it was also a good combination of listening to us talk on several different topics in the first roughly half, 2/3 of the first season, but then bring in guests that are interesting in their own way, have specific subject matter knowledge, and giving a different perspective that we could then kind of dive deeper into. I know we're going to do that again in season 2. We already have a couple recordings lined up, and we're going to have several more. So I'm excited about a combination of new topics, new guests, but also, like we said we'd do, diving deeper into some of the topics that we already discussed, partly because...
And we're still going to drink, right?
And we're not going to even bother drinking to the general plan. Not this time.
You had to do that.
That's right. For the last time, we're going to toast.
But what I like, though, what won't change is why we're doing this, right? And we're still going to keep drinking wine and having cigars on the porch. But look, I think I am excited about some of the topics that we can take a deeper dive on. And a lot of it is going to be depending on what people, tell us too. I think I am interested, believe it or not, in hearing what people might want us to talk about. And for example, like the wine industry, right? There's so much shit that's changing every day that we do need to take a deep dive. And for, some of the things we're seeing, younger families investing in vineyards, younger families buying a second winery. That's awesome. That's exciting. And to me, what's interesting, whether you're having lunch, at some of my favorite restaurants or going up to the bar at a restaurant, which I'm actually enjoying now, going by myself to restaurants at the bar because you talk to random people. But, you hear this like hope. And I think people have hope that it is hurting right now, but things are going to get better. And maybe when it is hurting, it's also an opportunity in disguise. And I'm seeing that from some of our friends, John, that they're doubling down. And it's huge risk, right? But they're doubling down. That means they believe in this community. And I think that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, we've heard a lot from folks about the negative conditions, the economic uncertainty. Financially, people are really stretched, and that's a reality. And it's not easy to...
I'm trying to build a house right now. It's freaking scary.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to sell a house right now, and it's also scary.
That's right.
But, we need to be honest about what's happening in our community and with our friends and colleagues and all that. You can't just talk about the fun stuff. And so I think we will talk about fun things. We're going to talk about youth sports, and we're going to talk about...
Don't provoke me.
I want to provoke you about that because it's something I think that we can really expand on in Napa Valley, and there's great potential there. And we'll get to that. But we also need to revisit some of the topics that are different than when we first discussed them, either just the two of us or, like what's happening with tariffs in the wine industry, what's happening with the fact that vineyard, growers are struggling to sell their fruit.
Well, let me just quickly kind of give you a flash in the pan, right, on some of the things you talked about. Like I was given a vineyard tour, didn't sell anything, by the way, so I don't want anything I was doing anything bad, but just trying to sell grapes, right? And we're very fortunate, our grapes are sold. but some of my neighbors are not. And I'm taking winemakers up there. It's not even to say, can you buy grapes? Are you willing to take grapes for free? Like, think about that concept. You have to do that in this economy, but everyone thinks it's so easy. You know, you make an investment, you rip the land, you wait 3 to 4 years to make any money, and then the market turns and you have to kind of say, will you take my grapes for free? And they're not free, by the way, for that winemaker, because they have to process it, they have to buy barrels. So nothing's free. But like, that's the reality of what people are facing and what people are going through right now. So that's one. Second, I was at a soccer tournament this weekend with my daughter, and they played on beautiful fields. Beautiful fields. It's unfortunate I had to go to Sacramento for it, but it's ridiculous that here we are, all these Napa families going to these beautiful sports complexes, and you're all pissed off because you go back home and we don't have it, right? Granted, we drink our Napa wine there to compensate for the pain, but it's ridiculous. And it's like, this is Napa Valley, and we don't have an ability to create sports fields. And I'm tired of the excuses. I'm tired that the land's too expensive. The city just passed a $20 million general tax that wasn't so general, right? And
the sales tax increase. Yeah.
We can't find $2 million, $5 million, $10 million for kids. Like, it's ridiculous. And I've said that like 5 times already.
I know that that's a passion for you.
Yeah.
And I understand also, even being a non-parent, I get the fact that we need to be cultivating all these different experiences for our young folks. You know, certainly in Yountville, I saw a drop in young families after the elementary school was closed.
What did we think was going to happen though?
Well, it's very real. Those things happen, whether you agree or disagree with, the fact that it was closed. It's still putting pressure on being able to still generate interest for young families to come and either move here, stay here. And you do need the, entertainment, whether it's music, performing arts, sports, all those things to engage kids and engage families.
No, I agree. But it's also not just, the young families. It's like, I volunteered to coach my son's soccer team because there was no parents, and luckily someone else stepped up. I was very quick to get out of that commitment, right? Because I have 3 kids playing sports, right? And we're dividing and conquering, me and my wife. But it's that, right? It's the social cost of not having young families that are here. And when something is needed, people step up, right? It's not just sponsoring a soccer team, right? It's being engaged to know what's going on with your kids, right? And I think that's part of it. And you mentioned arts. This community is very generous. So we have all the ingredients, but I do think this is where the local government is failing, right? They're not prioritizing, local families and recreation. And I think it's something they have to do. I think our Parks and Rec folks do a great job, but if you go to some of the parks in our community, you can't even kick the ball because sometimes you can't find the ball. Like, that's not acceptable, right? So we have to do better.
Well, I think it takes bold leadership to really...
You think they have that?
Who's they?
The city councils?
I think there's potential there.
You should ask me that question because the answer is no.
Do you think?
No, they don't. They've had to be fair, they've been presented opportunities to take action.
Well, it remains to be seen, especially in the city of Napa. They now have this, like you said, $20+ million annual new revenue that they have committed to supporting local families and youth and, parks and recreation, as well as other things like road repair. I'll give them credit. There's a lot of street and road.
Our roads are looking great, by the way.
Well, it took me a long time to get down here because the road that we've got is still being striped, and it's been like 6 months.
But they're being paved. I've seen a lot of road work.
It's long overdue.
Kate Miller's going to be very happy that we mentioned her name and the roads.
And they are delivering. When you can see where the money is being spent, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because sometimes infrastructure is underground, and people are like, where's all that money going? You said that you were going to raise and spend on us. Studies. Well, no, they're really putting it to something. But I wanted to mention something a point you made, combination of the performing arts, philanthropy, generosity of this valley, but also how you can be strong and bold in leadership. The Lincoln Theater, which has been closed for several years now, unfortunately, it's state owned and operated on state property, but it was over $20 million in private philanthropy that was donated to open that thing back in the early 2000s.
But it's closed.
A major innovation.
It's closed now?
It's been closed for over 5 years.
Why?
Partly because the lease was up and the state was kind of demanding different terms, and the foundation wasn't willing to go that far. But my point is that was over $20 million in private money that renovated that theater and made it a premier performing arts center in this valley. That same kind of effort, especially if it's combined with local government funding, you add private philanthropy, government funding, and all of a sudden you've got a sports complex.
Yeah.
And I think, Harvest Middle School, what's happening at Harvest Middle School? That's a site in the city of Napa that has great potential for that kind of opportunity. There are a few other sites that can also be, Skyline Park. Is there an opportunity to do something with the land that the county has purchased for recreation?
I hope they prove us wrong and they actually do something. All right, the opportunities are there, to your point. So maybe that's going to be something we talk about, right? Because we can keep talking about this quite some time. The other area, AI, we've talked about, artificial intelligence. I think that's an area that people are learning, right? Of how do you manage it? How do you work with it? I think it's pretty damn scary too, though, right? And how that's going to be used, weaponized. Is it going to make us more efficient? Is it going to make us dumber? I don't know. It doesn't mean we ignore it. And I think we have to open our minds to what it can do, right? I think the Board of Supervisors was passing a resolution today or whenever this airs, around, we're going to make sure AI is beneficial. I'm like, thank you for doing a resolution about that, right? Welcome to what we already know.
That's like saying you can't use the internet. Negative. It's like, good luck.
Yeah. Thank you for doing these wonderful whereas paragraphs, right? But I'm interested in the meat and potatoes of what does that mean for you and I, for daily life, for my mom, or for kids? Like, it's going to transform the way we live. And I don't think people are ready for that. I don't know how you feel about it.
It's going to take more than one episode to talk about AI. I'm sure of that.
I'm visualizing AI putting a mustache on you because I knew you grew one at one point in time. I'm going to use AI to do that, by the way.
I thought you wanted it to be done
for the betterment?
For good.
You're depriving us of seeing you with a mustache. How is that not good for the good?
Well, I've seen it.
Sorry, move on.
That's why I'm doing it or not doing it. But AI is already very much a part of our lives. People don't really fully understand how much. And I think there are opportunities of not only educating ourselves, and I've talked to two different people in particular and potential guests to talk about what does this mean for employment in the workplace. People graduating from either high school, trade school, colleges. The one thing I keep hearing from them and others is if you're not embracing AI, you're at a huge deficit, and you need to figure out how to incorporate it into your life and your careers, because other people are, and they're going to have benefits from it.
Well, look, I'm fascinated by how it's going to make us more productive as a society, as humans, right? So I think there's some benefits, but I am concerned about as a society, how we're still processing living in the information age, right? Of social media and, next door, your favorite, platform, how it was never intended to be what it became. I would hope it was intended to be a way for neighbors to connect and share information. And then you got a couple of knuckleheads on there and it's like their platform to feel relevant and maybe to wake up in the morning to blast people. And that's what it wasn't built for that. And AI, that to me is kind of like, what guardrails is it going to have so it remains constructive and positive?
Well, that's going to be one of the challenges. It's always the challenge. How does the government keep up with innovation? Because the innovation always goes faster than the government does. And the government swings and misses too often. Look at what we've just seen in the last several months about how the technology leaders have been really kind of repositioning themselves to make sure that their federal dollars are still available to them. And so they can continue to advance their individual technologies. That's a scary thing, because what's regulation going to be doing?
Yeah.
And we see the deep fakes. We see the false videos, the fake videos.
But how do you know? But to your point though, John, how are we going to know whether that's fake or not? Like that's a real human instinct of, I'm seeing stuff now. I'm like, is that real? Is that not? And it's that type of confusion that I think people might weaponize.
But I think you just need to start being skeptical.
Yeah.
And then go from there. Because if you assume everything is real, you're going to be wrong.
But at the same time, I don't want to raise a bunch of nervous Nellies all the time either, right? Like, I think about my kids. I want them to think critically, right? And that's what I often tell them, right? It's like, yes, I care whether you're right or wrong, but show me why. Like, why are you thinking this way? That, to me, that's more fundamental and that's more important, because that's not something that AI is going to be able to replace, I hope, right? It's going to make it more efficient as human beings, but it's that critical thinking. And I think there's a lot of people that are just missing that. And you and I we've talked about that on the porch where, we have family that just props up on the couch and looks at this. And it's like, man, so that they've become, weaponized and maybe consuming X just because they see it. And there's a lot of people like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in a transitional time in our lives.
You more so than others.
Yes, I've had more transitions than you have. But it's like, first graders have tablets in their hands in school now. That was never the case before. There are very young people that are very smart technology-wise, smarter often than old people like me. And so this is a new transitional period for a lot of different things. One of them needs to be awareness of how are you getting your messaging?
Yeah.
Are you only listening to the same people that say what you want to hear? You're not even interested in an alternative perspective. That's one of the problems. And then you assume that the alternative perspective is lying to you or is fake. And then what reinforces you is true.
Like, you're spot on. And when you talk about iPads, we often talk about screen time with, kids and everything. And you could totally tell the helicopter parents, like, we don't believe it in any screens. It's like, great. Okay. But, it's not that simple. It's like, there's some positive things. And I've seen it with my kids. Like, we monitor what they're doing, right? But to be tech savvy, to understand, like, there's value in this world they're living in, that they understand technology, they understand how to operate, tablets and so forth. So to me, again, it's how do you evolve and how do you keep an open mind to it? But, there's a lot of things happening around us. And I think that's what I'm fascinated by, and being able to bring people that can speak about things like AI and how do you cope in a world like that.
Here's something that I think could be interesting is bringing in different generations to talk about.
I think we've covered that well between us.
Bring in somebody that's in high school or a new, 20-something that's on his or her own now, has a emerging career, and what's their perspective on these things?
Yeah.
Even, I don't know if we'd get anybody younger than high school to talk about it, but it's like, how do you manage it? Maybe we talk to parents about how do you handle children and their screen time?
Yeah.
How do you manage the information that you can't always control? When Jerry and I were just up in Oregon visiting her family, she has a 9-year-old nephew. And there are times when he's on YouTube or other platforms that there's adult content on there, whether it's swear words or something else. Now there's all kinds of videos that might have violence or whatever. How do you manage that as a parent?
You can set some settings on it.
So, but that's a learning for some people.
Yeah.
And, it's not the only thing, because certainly artificial intelligence is advancing technologies. It's advancing how vineyards are being grown, watered, how wildfire protection is happening.
Yeah.
We have AI early detection towers. So there's a lot of great opportunity to, serve the community in a positive way.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of the dangers. We're not going to be able to control or regulate all of it.
Look, I think it's fascinating to see how fast it's happening, right? And I think you're seeing it in light speed, and how people live is going to fundamentally change, right? I hope that we don't lose sight of things that matter, the basics, right? You hold the door if someone's walking in, right? You acknowledge people. But what I've seen erode, though, to your point, is you tell people you listen to X podcasts, and it's like, well, you're just one of those. I'm like, why? Just because I'm listening? I listen to the other side too. But the fact that, people are so quick to label, I think we gotta get away from that a little bit. It's like, look, we're just people, right? You want what's best for your family, so do I. And I hope that as we talk about different topics, that we're providing context that's creating people that are more informed, that are willing to maybe listen a little bit more and engage a little bit more without like guns blazing for every conversation you're having. Right.
Yeah. And I want us to get into some, again, we've been hyper local, which I think is really what our audience wants and what we want to stay focused on. But I do think that we should, look at what's happening with economic development there's a lot going on in the city of Napa. There may be other things happening throughout the valley, and just identifying some of those things, because that's also in a transitional phase of the history and the heritage of the valley. Generations that started this as a wine region and hospitality and natural beauty and all those things, those folks are aging out, and new generations are in some cases purchasing properties, businesses, but some new people are coming in and they're looking at things differently and staying aware of what are the changes and what are the concerns with those changes, or what are the values?
I'm glad you mentioned economic development, because I think one of the perspectives, we mentioned we want to hear from like a hotel owner, right? To kind of hear from them. And I think we have that queued up. But like a restaurant, I'm very fascinated to hear how restaurants are doing, how they're operating, because we've seen some close. We've seen some new ones open. And I think getting that perspective of how hard it is, because you do have a lot of local restaurants that are locally owned. And if you remember during the 2014 earthquake and fires and all this, a lot of those local folks were the first ones there saying, we got to get back up. We're going to keep paying for our employees. Like, that doesn't happen everywhere, right? It happens here. They're part of the fabric. I think sometimes it goes overlooked because of the power of wine and tourism, but food is right there, right? So I think that's an area that I'm interested, John, and maybe we can take a deeper dive to kind of hear from them a little bit more in this season.
Another very important topic is still wildfires and all the mitigation measures that are happening throughout the county.
Yeah.
The county has been stepping up, providing funding. Unfortunately, the feds just clawed back over $30 million in funding for wildfire protection. That was really unfortunate and really hurtful. Kind of like what's happened in our healthcare sector, with funding being stripped from medical centers and hospitals. And now we're looking at local healthcare being put in real jeopardy because of the funding with, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, and other funding sources. Those are real things.
Right.
And they're not just national topics. They're relevant to our community. And we've got to, kind of dive a little bit deeper into those things.
No, I agree. I think healthcare is one, right? And Brenda mentioned this the other day, right? Because, it's pretty clear, you look at us, most people would say we have family from Mexico, right? We're Mexicans, and that we're born here. But it was something that really caught my attention, of the care that you've seen from other people, though. And I think it's been phenomenal to see people just really say, I recognize the suffering. And you don't see that in every community, man. So to be able to see what people are going through and express that type of care and compassion, it's been eye-opening. And I don't want to gloss over that. I'm not trying to get sentimental, but to see that happen in this community.
You're not going to cry, are you?
I'm not. I'm just telling you, man. I think it's cool to see that in this community, right? Because you and I don't have to worry about some of the things that people are going through, but people in our community are. People that you and I know, right? That tend to our vineyards, and everything. So I just want to make sure that we acknowledge this community for the care that they have. It's really manifested in that area.
And I know we've had some guests on in season 1 that have talked about some of this with hospitality, destination travel, the wine industry, and other things. And in some cases, those conditions have already changed, right? Just a few months ago. And so we want to either revisit or have a different perspective in that same kind of the space. But I think there are plenty of fresh new topics that we have already been talking about getting into. I know we're going to have, in the beginning of our season, we're going to talk hospitality. We're going to talk wildfire protection. We're lining up at least one to talk about AI. And we've got several others. We've talked about a lot of those topics we're looking into, right?
And I do think, even though we covered wine quite a bit, I think we need to go into that topic a little bit more. Right? I think there was a recent article, during our break, where it showed, the wine industry was creating $11 billion in economic value?
Yeah.
Think about that, $11 billion. And here we are regulating how many employees they can have, regulating how many visitors they can have. And I know you're part of groups, John, that are trying to change that. But I think we need to show more urgency in some of this. And I, for one, as a grower, there's nothing you can do for me, right? It's about the people that are selling the wine. Help the people that are selling the wine. If you help them, the growers will be okay, right? But it's just illustrated how critical it is. And I do think we have to make sure that we're not paying lip service, right? That you're trying to do something that actually helps people, because this community, it is at a crossroad. I still have tons of hope, right? Like I started talking about, young families buying things. That's incredible, right? And I do want to create opportunity for this because I believe competition is good. And for those that might be thinking like this is an opportunity to slow it down, I think you're wrong, right? The free market will take care of that, right? Try getting a loan for a vineyard deal right now. You know how hard it is? It's pretty damn hard. Try getting a loan to buy a winery and see what your bank's going to want. They're going to want your entire assets plus your first and second and unborn, right? Because that's how hard it is. So that tells me that the market is reacting to the risk. You don't need to come in with a heavy hand on government. We should be saying, what can we do to help you? Right. And again, I don't mean to end with wine just because it's in front of us, but it's so important and critical. And it's part of our fabric of who this community is. So I think the electeds do have to acknowledge, it's not that you're pro wine, it's that you're pro this community, right? So I'm done with my venting.
No, it's very impressive. Coming from a farmer, I know that you're
I'm a farmer.
about this.
You like that intro? I said I'm a farmer now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you probably need to throw a little more dirt on your clothes just to be more authentic, but that's okay.
I was doing vineyard tours this morning, man. I'm not going to tell you where, but I was.
I do totally agree with, there needs to be an acknowledgement of the full value of agriculture in this valley. And that goes from growing to the farming to the protection of natural resources to the economic vitality. We have so much in this county that comes from those that have invested in the wine industry.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many communities that don't have this kind of economic machine. Now, it needs to have its own oversight and some regulation, but the over-regulation, even in the good times, is harmful economically.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you're picking profit over, community
people.
And people. Absolutely not. You're keeping people employed. You're able to fund police and fire and public education. I mean, think about as when we had one of our guests on in season 1 talking about when vineyards are ripped out and nothing's put back because the property owner can't afford it. What does that do to your property value?
Well, Tudor's going to be, isn't there a presentation at the board?
This month, at the end of July, this week is going to be the county assessor's report. The initial reading that I did is that there is a slight increase in the value. It's not because of the economy, it's other factors.
People are buying and selling.
Changed.
I agree.
So you're getting people that have had, multiple decade-old properties selling it, and that's providing new tax revenue for the county.
Yeah.
In those numbers will be serious economic struggles.
Yeah.
I need to acknowledge it. I agree that we need to be really inspiring and supporting anybody that's willing to invest in our community.
Agree.
I mean, we saw this during COVID, and we saw it coming out of the wildfires, and after the earthquake in 2014, people really needed support, and not just the weeks and months after those disasters, but these economic impacts are multi-year.
Well, I agree. I'm waiting for all the trade groups and the advocacy groups, John, to do something, right? And at some point, it's like, where are the solutions going to come from? Like, we've been talking about the hurt and pain all year, and the hurt and pain is still here. And I have maybe I'm on the outside, right? But gee, it'd be great to start putting things in front of people so we can get a reaction to see how people are going to respond. And again,
thankfully those conversations are finally happening.
Well,
and I've been saying for at least the last couple of years, and really longer than that, people weren't feeling enough pain to really change. It's like, it'll pass. No, it's not really passing yet, is it? These issues are, they're in large part the first time the wine industry has really struggled with being able to, make wine, to sell wine. Now you've got major markets that are like, we're not going to buy your wine right now. So that's scary. And you add on some of the restrictions to how to operate successfully. And, we better be careful.
I agree. I'll tell you two things. Did you get the invite? I think the board had a proclamation around free speech, and they were recognizing all media partners. Did you get an invitation to that? Because we're part of the media circuit now. I didn't get one, but maybe mine was lost.
You probably didn't read that email. I didn't get it.
But our newspapers were front and center, right? The ones that have a monetization behind them. So you didn't get yours either?
No, we had to work on that.
Gosh darn it. But I will tell you, like we did a little, to end on a positive note, we did a little dinner out in the vineyard, which I can, right? I don't need a permit for that.
No ticket sales.
No ticket sales. But it was a beautiful thing. And there were vintners. I'm not going to name names, but there were vintners. And it was long tables with food and wine in a beautiful setting. And everyone's response was like, how special are we? Right. And my response was, we are. And the fact that you can't do this legitimately through a winery if they wanted to was ridiculous. But here it was just our friends in our backyard. I'm like, this is what we have. And why wouldn't we want to share it with people? Right. So to me, I don't want to lose sight of how special this is, but we do need to, shake the ground a little bit of what we stand on and make people a little uncomfortable, that it can't be the same way anymore, right? The game has changed fundamentally. So
I'll entertain a toast that we use our platform to inspire strong and bold leadership.
Inspire. Cheers.
Cheers. Perfect.
What a great way to kick off, season 2 with the porch, John.
Yeah, I think we need to get the Napa Wine Train to sponsor us, since they just blew the horn.
They're getting a plug for free. I don't like that.
Well, with or without the train horn, Alfredo, what do you think about the upcoming season 2? Here we are launching after 6 months of our first season. The people we had as guests, the topics we covered, and the topics we're going to cover. Anything in particular you're most excited about?
No, John, I'm full of hope today. I don't know why.
You're rested. We took 6 weeks off, so you're rested.
Maybe that's why. And I didn't have lunch where I normally have it, but we'll tell you, man, I'm excited. You've done a good job of reminding us that there is buzz around what we do, and what we're doing is valuable. And I agree with you, right? So I'm excited about taking a deeper dive on some of the issues like we did in season 1. Whether it's AI or the wine business or the lack of leadership and political courage for sports fields. I'm all in, man.
Well, especially because we just had a great run of our local Napa Valley 1839 FC was in the championship match of their under 23 league in Texas, and they came up just a couple penalty shots short of the championship. But what a great season and a great program to have here in Napa Valley, owned and operated by longtime locals in this valley that are offering another, not only opportunity for young people to have a real sports team here to root for, but they were packing in, hundreds of thousands of people at Dodge Stadium for their games. It was great.
Look, I think it's an incredible environment, and the ambience of sports when you would go to the games was clear. I just don't know how you miss 3 penalties. That's unacceptable, right?
Well, if we had a sports complex here in the valley, there might be more opportunity to develop.
You're flirting with me.
I know your buttons.
And that's not okay. But I will tell you, I think when 1839 was coming around, they asked me and former supervisor Greger to do a penalty shoot-off. We already know who won. But what people don't know is I pulled the quad muscle shooting. I couldn't get into the car. It's when you have those moments, and you had them very much before I did. But I'm like, I shouldn't be shooting without stretching. I thought I could just go and shoot a penalty, and I scored all 5, just to be clear. But it's a good reminder of, how great it is to have athletics, to your point, right? And they deserve a shout out, those boys, those men that play. It's about them, but what was more powerful when you go to the stand, see a bunch of kids looking around and seeing, like, that can be me. And that's the hope, right? I talked about I'm full of hope. Maybe it's because of that.
I love the way the community embraced them as a team and as, really entertainment. And like you say, it was family friendly. When we went to several games and saw some of the same faces, but often different faces. And there were business owners there supporting, sponsoring. That's an opportunity. We see a lot of that with our performing arts and visual arts in the Valley. That's kind of a different demographic sector that has been engaged with Festival Napa Valley, with Live in the Vineyard, and some of the music in the vineyard that's happening this coming month. But also things like the V Foundation Wine Celebration is coming up in August, and there's so many wonderful opportunities to experience the Napa Valley for people coming here, but also people that live here.
I want to correct you on one thing. It's not entertainment, right? Soccer, and I would say sports in general, right? It's a classroom, right? You learn so much playing sports, dealing with prima donnas, right? Dealing with losing, knowing that you're part of a team, knowing that, you know, there's sportsmanship, knowing that there's respect for your coach, knowing that, you know, there's people that support you. Like, there's so much you learn in sports. And that's why I tell people, I'm a big fan of it, because I got to see what it's like. And I know when, you know, I played it with older kids, like how sometimes you have to be careful, right? Because there's always someone bigger than you, but how do you earn people's respect? Like, there's so much you can learn in sports. And that's why, you know, I am hard on the city in particular, because they haven't showed the political courage to do something around sports, because it's not just about the game. It's about what you're teaching young boys and girls. It's not just boys, it's girls. My daughter plays soccer. Life skills, right? And that's so critical. And to me, you know, we're letting people down by not having, you know, these incredible facilities. You know, Napa, you know, our wine industry is creating $11 billion of economic value. The city's passing a wonderful tax of $20 million, and we can't figure this out.
Well, I can tell you're passionate, as many people are, and I know this will be one of the first episodes that we get to in season 2. There's plenty to talk about. That's what excites me. You know, we covered with 20 episodes and then had our recap for a 21 episode first season, and we still have just barely scratched the surface of the opportunities to talk about things.
And I will say, if anyone thinks we're being a little too hard on them, call us out and come have the conversation, right? Because I don't think we are, in particular me, maybe I'm picking a little bit on a couple of folks or groups or organizations, and come prove us wrong, right? But at some point, everyone needs to step up and lean into it, because it's worthwhile. So,
and as we talked about in the first season, I invite people to email us at publiccommentnapa@gmail.com, and I'll read the comments and I'll share them with you, and you do with them what you want. I know you won't read them, so I'll read them to you.
But I will internalize them.
That's right, and we'll learn from them. No, I appreciate, we had some very regular guests that would comment, and I appreciate them spending the time. Then we had some folks that have listened to many, but not all of the episodes. And we've posted on Facebook in particular, all the episodes, as well as the topics. So if there are certain things of interest, you can go ahead and pick those particular episodes out. We've got a lot more to talk about, though.
Agree.
Cheers to that.